Hi, my name is Paul Offit. I'm talking to you today from the Vaccine Education Center at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. It's Thursday, June 20th, 2024. Well, on June 3rd, a couple weeks ago, Dr. Tony Fauci was asked to testify in front of Congress about, in part, the origin of COVID, meaning the origin of SARS-CoV-2 virus. Now, this is an important thing to know. It's important to know for these reasons. First, in 2002, SARS-1 virus raised its head in China, swept across the world, causing thousands of cases and hundreds of deaths. 10 years later, in 2012, MERS virus originated in Saudi Arabia, swept across the world, causes thousands of cases and hundreds of deaths. Then in 2019, at the end of 2019, again arising in China, SARS-CoV-2 virus swept across the world, caused 700 million cases and 7 million deaths. That's 3 pandemic coronaviruses over the last 20 years. I think it is safe to assume that there will be another pandemic virus, and that's why it's important to know the origin. Now, scientifically, one could argue that it is known. We do know, and here's how you know. Because if you look at studies that were done by people like Michael Warby and other evolutionary biologists, all the early cases of SARS-CoV-2, the cause of COVID, occurred in the southwestern section of the Hunan wholesale seafood market, and then spread concentrically out from that part of the market. All those early cases were there. Secondly, although the Chinese government basically shut down the market, sterilized it, and then killed or at least sent to other places the animals that were there, there was a chance for scientists to go in there and see if they could figure out what happened. Now, they knew that those early cases were in the southwestern section of the market. So what they did was they went to those stalls and they tested carts, cages, the machines that were used to kill the animals, the brushes that were used to brush the animals, and they found genetic evidence of SARS-CoV-2 virus in all of those samples. In addition, they found mammalian DNA that represented raccoon dogs, palm civets, and bamboo rats, all of which are animals that could transmit the virus from bats to humans. So this was the smoking gun. This was clear evidence that that's where the virus started and how it started. In addition, that's exactly the way SARS-1 started. It also started in a wet market that sold mammals that were susceptible to in that case, SARS-1 virus, and then spread out from there. Now, there are some people who believe, and sadly, it's a lot of people, about 2/3 of the American public in recent polls have shown that they believe in the so-called lab leak hypothesis, which is to say that the virus was created in a laboratory in Wuhan and then spread throughout the city. Now, it is true that the United States government funded research on coronaviruses in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Now, some people claim that with that funding, that what then researchers did at the Wuhan Institute of Virology was they took viruses that were very close to SARS-CoV-2 and modified them to create a pandemic strain. Now, that's not true. The 2 viruses that they were working with, so-called WIV1, or Wuhan Institute of Virology 1, or RTG13, were not even close to precursors of this virus. So that was wrong. They then argued that people in that lab, when they created these viruses, got sick with those viruses. But there's, again, no evidence for that. Then they argued that when they got sick, what they did was they traveled to the western section of the Hunan wholesale seafood market, and then with that being ill, they were human super spreaders and then spread that virus to others in that section. Now, if it's true that somebody did get sick, they would have had to have traveled 9 miles across the Yangtze River without affecting anybody in between, and then release those viruses, which kind of defies common sense because that human super spreader could have gone anywhere in Wuhan. They could have gone to anywhere of the 10,000 other places in Wuhan where you could have started a pandemic. Also, it should be made clear that there were 2 separate lineages of SARS-CoV-2 virus, not one. So there would have had to have been 2 super spreaders that contracted the virus at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, traveled 9 miles, crossing the Yangtze River, and then traveled exactly to a place where you would have expected an animal to human spillover event to occur. which simply defies common sense. So I think we have the answer. The answer is that this was, as one would expect, an animal to human spillover event, which is true basically for 70% of the viruses and bacteria and parasites that infect humans, which invariably have their animal origins. But there is someone culpable here. I think the group that's culpable is China. China allowed 31 separate mammalian species to be sold illegally. When that outbreak occurred, China did not allow an investigative team of researchers from outside of the country to come in and see what was going on. And perhaps worst of all, we had to depend on a whistleblower in China, a 34-year-old ophthalmologist, to tell the world that there was a virus circulating in that city that was causing people to be hospitalized with an unusual form of pneumonia and die. We shouldn't have had to depend on any of that. So I think China was culpable here, and I think that's where we should spend our attention now. We should try and figure out how we can best use an international surveillance program to very quickly know when these pandemics are occurring and how to quickly stop them. Thank you.